My name is Geraldine Moore. I'm the website coordinator for the Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder Coalition of Victoria. And in 2005 I wrote a book about my own family's experiences with ADHD, and I have also been a consumer representative for ADHD on the National Health and Medical Research Council's committee revising the guidelines on ADHD. It's very, very hard because there's a stigma associated with being diagnosed with ADHD, and the stigma is made worse when people in the media consider that it's okay to lampoon those who have this condition, and also to suggest that it's not genuine, that their parents are covering up for their own inadequacies as parents, and that that's the real cause of it, or that it's just a lack of moral fibre which people are making excuses for. And all of these are very harmful stereotypes that are commonly portrayed in the media. Some people do come out as adults and talk about it, particularly when they feel that they have made some sort of progress in life, so that they're not so embarrassed about it. For parents, it's very difficult to talk about their children because other parents perceive it as just making excuses, and also the children can sometimes be victimised at school or in social situations by others if they have been featured in articles or television excerpts or segments on current affairs shows. And also there's a loss of control, because sometimes media people will solicit someone to help explain the condition, and then they will, having had the help, sometimes they will just make their own judgment about the condition, often a negative one, and then the person who helped provide information can feel very disappointed and betrayed. So for the support groups, it's difficult for them to ask people who they think might be useful to give information to the media to do that, because they worry that if they do that and the media person then betrays the person who they are getting the information from, that then the support group somehow is responsible. So the support groups are often unwilling to give names and contact numbers for people to the media because of past bad experiences. But I used to be coordinator of a group called Active Incorporated, which was a support group for attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and we would often get people ringing up from television stations and saying, "Oh, we want to interview a parent of a child with ADHD, can you give us some names?" Now, the problem with that from our point of view is that we don't know whether that will be a good experience for the parent and their child or children, or whether it will turn out to be a very disappointing experience. And so unless we know the person well, or there is a track record of them writing good articles, we are usually reluctant to put people in the experience, through the experience, in case it turns out to be a negative one. I think the internet has been very important in putting people in touch with others who've got similar problems, and I think it has, as you say, been very empowering for some people. Actually, there are not very many support groups in existence in Victoria or Australia, as far as I know, and there's a very great need for them. But it's very hard to run support groups because everybody's working these days and busy, and they don't have the time to commit to going out to meetings and organising events and so forth. So although there's a great need, it's not necessarily being very well met at the moment.
Okay.
It does come under the Federal Discrimination Act,
Okay.
but what I think you're talking about is the allowance for children with disabilities that comes from the Commonwealth Government.
Yeah.
Now that
Yeah,
that allowance, the eligibility for it is determined on points, and the points go to things like: can the child get dressed by himself? Can the child go to the toilet by himself? Has the child got a mental retardation problem? Whatever, it has certain things with points accorded to the answers. However, with ADHD, often they can do these things, but they don't. So, a child can dress himself, but cannot be relied upon to do it without help, and in that way is almost as big a problem for the parents as a child who physically can't do it. So, but then you see the system regards that as a behavioural problem, and they actually don't rate behavioural problems on the same basis as physical problems. And so ADHD tends to miss out.
Okay.
No, as far as I know, there's nothing. Our organisation has never had any help, well, not for many years, and the kind of help that you do get is occasional and small, and you have to put in applications for grants, and they will only give it for specific projects of the association which they are satisfied are of benefit, and then you've got to account for every cent that you've used, and it ends up being a bit of a bureaucratic nightmare, and for very little money usually.
Okay.
Some employers are very understanding about it. A lot of employers are not understanding about it, and so a lot of employees make the choice not to tell. Well, I'd say at the outset, not everybody is in the lower socio-economic bracket. There are some very successful people with ADHD, and some who will say that their ADHD is actually an asset in helping them to be creative and to think laterally. However, they tend to be the well-managed people with ADHD who have good self-esteem and good skills, even if they had difficulties in growing up. However, a lot of people with ADHD are very damaged by the bad experiences that they have as children and adolescents, where they are misunderstood and blamed for their difficulties, and they develop, in some cases, low self-esteem, and that puts them at risk of dropping out of school early, getting in with the wrong crowd, experimenting with drugs, and not achieving their potential, and therefore drifting into a lower socio-economic bracket. So it's not a goal, it's not a rule, but it is probably the case that a lot more of them do end up in the lower socio-economic bracket.